The first topic, and Jim wrote most of these topics today, but for those of you who follow us on Twitter, Jim is one of the few people. There's some people, like, I go on Twitter, honestly, just once in a while. I repost stuff from our page. I check out stuff for, like, horror things. Like, I'm not an active Twitter user by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm addicted.
Sometimes I see Jim posts a lot of stuff that just makes me shake my head. As most of our friends, when Jim says many things, we all just shake our heads. And it's like, okay.
My life is a combination of content whoring and shit posting. That's what I am.
And the problem is, Jim has blurred the lines. Like, he's kind of like, a wrestler who's been doing a bad character too long and probably can't tell the truth. Like, he says things which I can't tell if he's trying to get shock value or if he believes. But I've known Jim long enough that some things he truly believes. And this question was posed on Twitter from Daria Plays, and it was, which console is worse?
It was basically which was the more detrimental console between the Wii U and the Dreamcast.
Yeah, to which Jim, naturally, as I said, when he makes terrible purchases that he paid too much for, he'll justify till the ends of the earth. And we've been down this road with Jim with the Wii U. Most people have already, we know. He's special. And he, of course, said, oh, the Dreamcast was way worse than the Wii U, the controller. That's always his biggest thing with that. And I had to step in.
Terrible.
I had to step in, had to pull him in his place. He made terrible points back and forth. And so now we wanted to bring it on here. So, Jim.
As one of our classic bits,
spin
on which is better.
Yeah. So I'll offer you the choice. Do you want me to go first or do you want me to go after you?
You can go first.
Okay. Good. Because I just want to sit back and hear whatever dribble comes out of you. So, as I pointed out, Jim's biggest thing is the Dreamcast had a terrible remote, which is a funny coming from a guy who loves the N64 remote and defends it even though that's rated the worst remote ever.
That is something that someone brought up.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of mentality you're working with here. So, when he brings it up in his point, it's already invalid. So, that's already done. My whole point was the Wii U, the worst selling home console for Nintendo.
Yep. Virtual Boy.
I said home console, meaning not mobile. I don't even know what the fuck you want to consider Virtual Boy. That was its own whatever. But my point is, I shit on the Wii U because Jim defends it. If he didn't defend it so hard, I probably would give it some. I would back off. But the problem is, Jim, because he spent way too much on it after it's probably his second, third party, and he got some games with it. I've always said it was essentially a tech demo for the Switch. Switch is amazing. I'm not going to argue about the Switch and the validity of that.
Speaking of...
Shut up.
Your Switch was by your toilet today.
I know it was.
Never touching your Switch.
If you're not playing your Switch on the toilet, then you're doing something wrong.
I've actually never brought my Switch on the toilet with me.
Then you don't know how to see. This is what we're dealing with. A guy that can't even...
I respect my Switch.
No, you just don't know how to play it. You're probably that one guy that like always leaves it on the home dock and sits there and plays it.
Actually, most people I talk to keep it docked. I never keep it docked. I'm always undocked.
Makes sense for you, Jim. But for the rest of us, the ones that know the Wii U isn't any good, let's get back to the goddamn point.
Okay.
So, the controller sucked for the Wii U. You walk away too far, it disconnects from the system. Once again, it was trying to set an idea for the Switch, and it didn't have all the kinks worked out. And instead of really developing it the way they should have, they just rushed it out to compete with 360 and PS3, which the games were laughable, most of them, when it came to actually competing from any kind of graphical standpoint, aside from first-party titles, which they always do gangbusters, so it's no surprise. But the true joke of it is all those first-party titles they knew were just going to be lined up for a better port on the Switch. And anybody today is going to tell you, I'm just playing Mario Kart 8. I'm playing Splatoon 2 now, or Breath of the Wild on the Switch. Nobody's going back to their Wii U to play those games. And those are basically the flagship games that made the Wii U even semi-meh. And then you add on to the fact that the fucking laughable nature of online for the Wii U was just, it was awful. So that system was just a complete bust through and through. And then you have the Dreamcast, which it only basically sold for 18 months, and it outsold the Wii U for many, many, many years. It took the Wii U like 8 years of being out to finally pass the Dreamcast, that's sad in itself. But the Dreamcast, as I said on Twitter, first console I could think of that was affordable, because Neo Geo was not affordable, that really did a decent port of arcade games. Games like Crazy Taxi, House of the Dead, Jim's favorite, Typing of the Dead, because it was innovative and being the first system that really brought in a keyboard like that. First system that, whether you want to use it or not, I use that web browser on there. Maybe not for the best purposes, but the point is, it could do that. Some could say it had better internet connectivity than a Wii U. I don't know. You tell me. But the Dreamcast had titles that weren't guaranteed to be ported. So even though eventually PS2 and other things many years later would port the games, it wasn't like the Wii U's games, which they damn well knew were coming right over to the Switch. So there is no true exclusive for the Wii U that didn't have a plan to come right to Switch. Dreamcast didn't have those kind of plans, so they had just far superior first person and just console exclusive titles for it. It was a system that revolutionized Resident Evil games with Resident Evil Code Veronica. It was a system that, it actually fought back EA Sports and was able to bring 2K really to the forefront and make that its own thing. The graphics, the sound, everything was pristine with that system. The biggest fault was that goddamn stupid controller and its short-ass runtime. The other interesting thing, that stupid-ass, and I'm calling it stupid, the VMU thing, some would say that's the inspiration for Wii U and having another screen to play a little game on to your little controller. Who knows? But I'm saying that was the inspiration. So by default, Dreamcast is obviously better than the Wii U.
Well,
and don't forget, this is the guy that loves the Nintendo 64 controller and it's voted the worst controller by everyone. Go.
The funny thing about the controller thing, I'll say it first, is I didn't say the Dreamcast controller was the worst controller ever. I just said it was a bad controller. Everyone just starts freaking out, going, well, this controller's worse. This controller's worse. Mm-hmm. Sure. Master System controller, way worse. Television Coleco controllers, way worse. Mm-hmm. And 64, better. But the Dreamcast controller...
You're in that lonely cesspool by yourself.
I know. It is a sack of crap.
Just like having that dick in your hand.
If you enjoy having awful, hard, overly raised up plasticky buttons with a shit D-pad...
We're not talking about the N64. Move on to the Dreamcast.
Buttons that will just rape your fingers. And an analog stick with so much dead zone space inside of it. Oh, and let's not forget the genius idea to put the cord on the bottom for... maximal convenience right there.
He didn't get the hint that, remember in 8 Mile when Eminem pointed out all the bad things, you're not supposed to repeat them? So he's going to repeat them. So keep going, Jim.
Look, it comes down to one very simple argument for which one was more detrimental. Mm-hmm. Wii U led to the Switch. Mm-hmm. Dreamcast led to a bunch of ports on every other console because it basically killed Sega. Mm-hmm. So... One, your idea of it was planned to have all the Wii U games be ported later on. Come on.
Nintendo officially have already reported that.
When did they report that?
They had
show me the receipts, Brian.
Why would it be a receipt?
Let's see.
I didn't purchase that knowledge.
But how? Show the article that says where they're like, oh, we just knew this was going to go to the Switch. Let's see.
If you look at their patents, it was lined up for the Switch to come right after the Wii U. So they were already in development of the Switch.
Yeah, every console as soon as they release a console, they start developing for the new one right away. So now with the intent of having the games ported over there.
What they have after Dreamcast?
Nothing, because it failed so bad.
So then
Sega gave
every
up.
Console did it.
Yeah, but they just did lazy ports of every single game to it. Everyone that you want. Crazy Taxi came out to everything. Code Veronica came out to a shitload of stuff. Then Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 eventually got ported. And Skies of Arcadia. And Phantasy Star Online. So all like 6 games that anyone ever cared about from the Dreamcast, they all eventually got ported much the same way that the Wii U games did.
But none of them ported were as good as the original.
Some could say better.
Who?
Code Veronica had way more content.
Sonic
Adventures had more content when it went over there.
Didn't play as well.
Crazy Taxi got more content when it got ported over.
But Jim, you're also pointing out one interesting flaw, is that we all know Sega's not a good company. So
They weren't.
just like the
Look,
Genesis, just
Look,
like all.
Look,
I mean,
the thing
Sega
comes down
doesn't
to
make
these are
good
very
stuff.
similar consoles because both of them were like the direct result of their company's hubris. Because the Dreamcast was actually a victim of the Saturn, which was actually the console that came before it that had some arcade quality stuff on there before the Dreamcast ever did. A lot of the fighting games on the Saturn are Dreamcast or arcade quality. So your argument for that with the Dreamcast,
Not as good.
a little bit invalidated there.
Also, the problem with the Dreamcast was, I can't remember, was it followed or did it precede the PS2?
It came before the PS2.
Yeah, so
They immediately gave up.
It was right on the dawn of the biggest console in history and still holding today. So naturally,
But how they knew it was going to be big, but it didn't have games, and it wasn't as big. It was a big seller because of the DVD drive. It wasn't even a seller because of the games. But even then, Dreamcast went, well, we can't do this, and Sega gave up. When it comes to more detrimental, and the fact, like, they needed a home run with the Dreamcast, and it did well for its 18 months, but it wasn't the home run it needed. Wii U, it was a disaster too. But you know what? All the ideas that they took from that, and it developed IPs that, much like the Dreamcast, lived on, but that Nintendo itself was able to take advantage of, and not like Sega.
Are you suggesting Nintendo is not bigger than Sega?
Well, now it is by default.
Even back in the day, you're saying the NES and Super NES weren't bigger than Sega?
Well, you know what? It's different. Like Sega in the arcades as compared to the home consoles in the 80s. And then with the Genesis and Super NES, they're about equal. And then Sega fucked itself up. So.
And you're not suggesting that Nintendo's biggest console, the Wii, preceded the Wii U, and it should have been working off the momentum of that and holding some kind of torch?
Well, the problem is it tried to go off the momentum of that because no one knew what the hell the Wii U was.
Yeah, but the Dreamcast came off the momentum of what? The Saturn, which had no momentum?
Had no momentum.
Yeah, so one company had a ton of momentum, the biggest console ever, well, almost ever, besides the PS2, and the other company was already on a slump trying to fight uphill, and the other one was coming from down here and fucking plummeted. So you're going to say that's the same?
Yeah, but the Dreamcast is a noisy piece of shit, too. Terrible hardware. If it's such a good console, then
Still
how is it
works.
so easy to pirate everything on it?
But that's a good thing that you can pirate stuff.
It's a good thing for the user, the end user, obviously.
What are we? Are we the users or not?
Look, Brian, we got to talk about what was more detrimental to the company here. That's what the argument was.
No. It was which console is worse. That's all it was.
Still the Dreamcast.
See, you see, as he fails, he tries to make the argument about what was more.
Look, if you want to go with it, one company died after their console. One had some of their. All right, so our camera just shit out. So hopefully it caught it, but the library's better. The longevity of the IPs that were created are going to be better. And let's face it, when Mario Maker came out on the Wii U, it was like a cultural phenomenon. What was a phenomenon on the Dreamcast? Nothing. That's what. What, 3D Sega? Ooh, the thing no one likes.
Power Stone, Marvel vs.
That was
Capcom
not
2.
a phenomenon. One was an arcade port, so that's not it's an
still,
original IP for it.
We're talking about the console itself. When anyone ever says, "Hey, let's go back and play these old consoles," are they ever going to say Wii U? Which all the games have already been converted to Switch. So
and plus, the Wii U has full upscaling backwards compatibility of the Wii library.
Yeah, no, which nobody cares about.
No, it's amazing.
No, nobody plays that. Nobody plays old Wii games.
I did it last month.
But you're you. Like, you can't. You're like the.
I just invalidated your argument. I did it.
As a lot of things that happen in today's culture, I'll say, you can't always just say the norms are because you have this 1% or even 0.5% outliers. Like, meh.
Look, Brian, you know more than I do that society today will cater to the 1% in a lot of ways.
I know,
right?
but that's not how it works, Jim.
Political.
At the end of the day, Dreamcast will always be the system that if you do want to go back and play some of these classic games, even if they're ported, it played a lot better on the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to go back and say, you know what? Let's play the Wii U. You got your tablet? Oh, it doesn't connect? Oh, it sucks. All right. So
simple fix.
At the end of the day, Jim is just arguing that something I've already told him many times. Sega just never did good in many of the things it did. That the company itself faltered because it was already on the decline, and this was a last-ditch effort, and doesn't want to accept the fact that Nintendo is fucking Nintendo. It's kind of like saying if, Disney did a bad movie versus, some other company that just tried to do a big movie and failed. You can see where Jim's argument. He's not coming from a gamer perspective. He's reaching. So So
Look, Brian, one can play Wii Sports, one can't. Argument over.
the Wii plays Wii Sports, and that's why it sold like gangbusters.
Right.
Because the controllers work better too. So
Actually, there's an argument for you. Wii tablet controller, surprisingly comfortable controller. Dreamcast controller, hunk of shit.
that's not the argument.
That is an argument. Part of the overall argument right there.
And it's funny that he's going
Better
to argue,
controller,
he's
better
going to argue
shitty
that
controller.
the Dreamcast controller's so rough on his hands when he's had one for all of 4 years and probably played 20 hours tops on that system. When I
Right, if I had a controller I would want to play, I'd obviously play it more.
and I've played it long enough to know.
And if any of the hardware in a Dreamcast would last more than 5 years because they all break down because they're all made terribly.
My original Dreamcast still works.
Because you never play yours. You never touch yours.
Jim, do we need to go into do we need to do an inventory of games and who plays what? And remember, this is the guy talking about controllers who says the N64 is one of his favorite. Just saying.
I love it because I don't have little bitch baby hands. Everyone's like, "Oh, I get it. I can't control your middle dick. You don't need the middle dick.
That's what
just
Jim
hold
loves.
it like a man."
He just likes holding the middle dick. It's his upbringing.
As
is what it is.
As opposed to what other dick, Brian? The side dick? There is no side dick.
This is just
Terrible argument.
This is just what Jim likes in life. And I'm not hating on him for his lifestyle. He can do what he wants to do.
You leave my middle dicks out of this.
So I love the argument. We all know who won. But it is not even a point.
This is one that I know straight up that I'm just going to lose in the comment section anyway because everyone loves their precious Dreamcast.
Jim, you haven't won. You can't say this is the one I'm going to lose. You haven't won one yet.
Nah, I win some.
You legit. You know that's just
I
a
win
fact.
some.
You know, this is the. I said we need to get it. We need to all pitch in. Jim needs a brain scan. See how that CTE from non-contact tennis happened, or whatever else happened.
From getting hit in the head with too many balls.
So yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't run with that
oh,
one.
I'm. You know, I'm trying to be classy here, Jim.
Since when?
You shouldn't punch down, and I've learned that. So I'm trying not to punch down. So I like that topic. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good one. And she just threw that out there on her whim, and she came back from like lunch break, and she's like, "Holy shit, what the hell happened?"